Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have a liftoff.
What's up, Doom Nation, and welcome back. We are back from the Shire, and you are listening to the Two Doom Men podcast. As always, it's Scagz and yours truly, the captain, and our good friend, a familiar face, Garrett from Sergeant and Samurai. What's up, boys? What's on today's docket?
Sharecast, I guess, tonight, right? Another Two Doom Men, Sergeant and Samurai, or just the Samurai mix-up?
The sergeant, the samurai of Two Doom Men.
Yeah. 3 Doom Men tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
The
this will
trifecta
be on,
of hell.
Exactly. So this will be on the Sergeant and Samurai as well. Shout out to Steven. Thanks for not showing up again.
Thanks for nothing.
Yeah. But don't forget to follow the Sergeant and the Samurai podcast on all their channels, wherever they might still be surviving in the corners of the deep, the dark web.
Yeah, we've been doing pretty well on Rumble, and we've been doing pretty good on Apple Podcasts. So check us out there.
There you go.
There you go.
Right, we've been hitting the numbers.
A fun-filled show tonight. The wars are raging on everywhere, and we're going to continue talking about them. I think we'll shift back primarily tonight to the war in Ukraine. There's some interesting developments coming out of there.
Very interesting.
We have an article from NBC News that I'll read a little bit of, and we'll talk about. I know we've talked about blowback before, but I think blowback will be a theme of this episode again. We're going to have a video from Benjamin Netanyahu. It's so damn ironic, some of the things that they're saying around the war in Israel. And we were young, right? All of us back in 9/11, but it's like
not Garrett. He was old as fuck back then.
Man, fuck you, bro.
Yeah. It's like they dusted off the playbook and just were like, let's just copy the same shit like that. They weren't even creative. So we'll get into
copy and paste.
So that's what we're going to talk about. Any other thoughts, boys, before we dive into it?
Nah, let's go.
Let's hop right into it. But real quick, get fucked. I ain't that old, okay, buddy?
All right. So let's go over to NBC. And keep in mind, NBC News, CNN, Fox, MSNBC, these are the corporate press, right? So when these things pop up on the corporate press news pages, I pay attention, right? Because it's something they don't ever say, and now they're just saying something completely different. It warrants our attention and our breaking it down. So this was a couple days ago, and it says U.S. European officials broach topic of peace negotiations with Ukraine, sources say. Wow, I mean, so just right off the bat, this is so different from the past 2 years. Now, all of a sudden, we're going to entertain peace, whereas for 2 years, that was a complete afterthought.
Peace was unobtainable.
Yeah. It was.
So U.S. and European officials have begun quietly talking to the Ukrainian government about what possible peace negotiations with Russia might entail to end the war. According to one current senior U.S. official and one former senior U.S. official familiar with the discussions, conversations have included very broad outlines of what Ukraine might need to give up to reach a deal, the official said. Some of the talks, which officials described as delicate, took place last month during a meeting of representatives from more than 50 nations supporting Ukraine, including NATO members, known as the Ukraine Defense Contact Group. The discussion... Go ahead.
It's just, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that... outline what Ukraine might need to give up to reach the deal. That was an unspeakable term. Not only 2 months ago, where this is beginning in November, September 1st. Well, today's what's October 5th,
November 6th, November 6th.
November 6th.
This happens a month in the past still.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, fall behind the time change. It's fucked me all up. I'm a month behind now. Dude, 2 months ago in September, that was an unspeakable term. There was not an inch, not a grain of sand or a single pebble would be given up by Ukraine. And now
all of Crimea.
Now, we're going to have to give some stuff up because we got a better war.
Yeah.
We got a better war in the Middle East now.
Feel free here to chime in at any moment as I read this article, boys. But, Captain, you are on this like white on rice. That was the first thing I was going to say. It's like,
Yeah, that's what I noticed. I love how they already have a Ukraine Defense Contact Group, too.
Yeah,
They love their
They have a group
acronyms,
chat.
man.
Yeah, like I wonder if it's an iPhone or if they have anybody with like Zelensky's in there with an Android.
They just got to keep adding them back in.
Actually, no. Zelensky's made so much money over the past 2 years. If he doesn't have an iPhone by now,
he probably bought Apple.
Yeah, he's got.
But I don't know. He's kind of a bitch, so he probably has an Android.
I wouldn't be surprised if he had an Android.
Yeah, I concur.
Yeah, he looks like it. He looks like an Android guy.
So
he does look like an avid Android.
He looks like an Android guy. Yeah,
and for all of our followers,
Europe, right? So they're just weird over there in general. Yeah.
And for all our followers who right now are like Android's better, you should thank your lucky stars that Apple lets you people even talk to us. Okay,
you greed bubbles.
Yes,
right. All Tim Cook's got to do is like push a button, and you guys are toast. You know?
Yeah.
All right. So they began amid concerns among U.S. and European officials that the war has reached a stalemate and about the ability to continue providing aid to Ukraine, officials said. Biden admin officials are also worried that Ukraine is running out of forces while Russia has a seemingly endless supply, officials said.
Okay, I'm going to hop in here real quick. I'm going to decode this for our listeners. Basically, nobody believes in the Ukrainian war like we've been talking about. Their money laundering machine is drying up, and they have to steer course to something else.
Yeah. That's going to be the moral of the story here, or behind, or that's not what they're saying here. What they're giving you is actually valid tactical concerns in reality that I would have been stressing this whole time. If you look back at history,
stressing these the whole time.
The Russians have literally unlimited humans, and they just throw wave after wave of human beings at you until they win. This is how they fought every war ever. Ukraine is much smaller, has much less people. So if you just like game this out at the beginning, you're like, there's no fucking way that they can beat Russia in a long-term stalemate or whatever. And so these are, this is actually, at least in my opinion, this is like honest. It's kind of like
but it's too late now.
But it's kind of like a lie by omission. They're telling you honestly, like now for like the situation on the ground, they can't win. Right? There's too many Russians. But what they're omitting,
that, and they've been throwing money at this.
Right. What they're omitting is the part that Garrett is bringing up, where it's like, fuck, we can't, or we have a better money laundering play, on hand.
If they weren't laundering the money and that money actually went to a war effort in Ukraine, maybe they'd be in better shape. But that went right back to 10% to the big guys' pockets. So.
The amount of money that they've given Ukraine, man, yes, I'm sure they've stolen quite a bit off the top, but
they've been getting caught.
They're subsidizing small businesses.
There's just so much money though that it would be hard, even if you were like legit honest, to figure out how to even spend all that on a war.
I think we were saying the one time it was like $226 million a day we were giving them.
Yeah,
something ridiculous.
You guys ever see that movie?
That one, yeah,
the movie where is it Richard Pryor wins the lottery or something, or he's like in someone's will. It's basically like if you can spend $100 million in a week, you'll inherit like $10 billion or something like that. You guys ever see that?
Was that him or Eddie Murphy?
Was it Eddie Murphy? I don't remember.
Remember the two brothers that were always in the things? They were the rich brothers, and then he was a bum on the side of the street, and they just like picked him up, and they made a $1 bet. That's what it was. They made a $1 bet to see if they could like turn him into a businessman and whatever, and he ended up like screwing them. So not screwing them, but like beating them at their own game, and then they became the two homeless guys over $1. It was crazy. Yeah.
Maybe we're talking about different movies. I don't know, but I just remember the point of this movie was basically he had to spend a shit ton of money in a short period of time, and he like couldn't even figure out what to spend it on. Like it was tough to spend, $100 million or whatever it is in like a week. Like he ended up like scheduling an exhibition between the Yankees and some other team just to like. I was like, that's the same concept here. Like even if you were honestly going to spend, $150 billion on a war. What the fuck? Like, where do I even begin? I know. If you
Raytheon,
yeah, it's a good point, but I just mean honestly. So like, it's such
it's an unfathomable number.
Yeah, it's such a volume.
Well, and to kick that number around, I mean, just think about how much money was spent in 20 years on Iraq and Afghanistan.
Oh yeah,
trillions.
Yeah,
and that's only the trillions they told you about.
Exactly.
I know.
Okay.
All right, where are we at?
Let's keep going a little bit.
And
we won't probably. How long is this? I didn't even double check. You thought I would have smart on me, but yeah, I'm not gonna read this whole thing. It's a lot. Okay, so I'll read one more paragraph, then we'll skip over maybe to Putin, the Putin stuff. They begin amid concern. Oh, sorry, we read this already.
No, next one.
Yeah, there is unease in the U.S. government with how much less public attention the war in Ukraine has garnered since the Israel-Hamas war began nearly a month ago, the officials said. Officials fear that shift could make securing additional aid for Kyiv more difficult. I think that's a pretty important admission of like public opinion does matter.
Yes, it is.
In 3 paragraphs, they basically have summed up what we've been podcasting about Ukraine for the past 2 years.
They've undone all of their propaganda for the past 2 years in literally 3 paragraphs. Just want to skip over to Putin.
By just telling you the truth.
Yeah. Which we've known since day one.
I'll read this paragraph, then we'll skip over to Putin. Some U.S. military officials have privately begun using the term stalemate to describe the current battle in Ukraine, with some saying it may come down to which side can maintain a military force the longest. Neither side is making large strides on the battlefield, which some U.S. officials now describe as a war of inches. Officials have privately said Ukraine likely only has until the end of the year or shortly thereafter before more urgent discussions about peace negotiations should begin. U.S. officials have shared their views on such a timeline with European allies. So go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to skip down to Putin, but go ahead while I'm doing that.
So my question is, I disconnected for a little bit last week. I'm not going to lie. I'm so tired of war talk and Israel and Gaza and this and that.
This is what the people want to hear, though, Captain. Our numbers are up for everybody. This is where we specialize, the wars, buddy. But go ahead.
I don't disagree, but you got to disconnect every once in a while, or you'll start your own war. But where did this? I feel like this came like out of the blue overnight. Like one day we're like signing bills to send more money to Ukraine, and then the next day the Pentagon's like, nope, can't do it anymore. Like, like what was the snowball effect outside of like Israel to lead to us here? Or is it just truly that like people found a new thing to support?
I think we've been actively causing a kink in the system and putting it in the spotlight of how much money laundering was really going on. And I know we've talked about this before, where like they're talking about a game of inches, and it was like we've been saying they've been basically like shifting between these 500 square miles, like this, like this, like this, like this, like this, like this, and I mean, at anything, Russia's gaining the ground no matter what because they're in their country, right?
Yeah.
So they can dig into those trenches and take that little bit of a thing, and they could have it for years. You know what I'm saying? So I think what's happening is enough people are really sick of hurting and watching them give our money away to somebody else, and they're not even winning the war. And then there's more stuff coming out about, the people actually, how many Ukrainian officials have been caught and fired and everything else for money laundering, their wives having briefcase of millions of dollars going over the border. Like all these dudes own French chateaus and live on the Mediterranean, have extra houses. Like we did. I don't know if it was me and you did the one podcast, and the one like the equivalent of like their Secretary of Defense bought his daughter a $13 million house on the Mediterranean as a wedding gift. Nice. Like, wouldn't that be nice for us to have that just as a gift for being, so generous with our money? So I think people are just really keen to it, and that's why the Israeli thing came in, because they were like, fuck, we can't keep pulling this off. I think it's crazy because in that article as well, it said 50 other nations are backing Ukraine. Who?
Yeah.
Well, there's 40 something nations in Europe total, right? Now let's take, I guess, I don't know if they're including Ukraine in the 50, and let's take Russia out of it, so that's 38. So you got like 38 right there, basically, or maybe let's say 35 from Europe, and then you got a couple.
So all of Europe's backing Ukraine.
Sorry, go ahead.
All of Europe's backing Ukraine against Russia.
I'd say all of Western Europe is definitely backing Ukraine against Russia. Where some of the Baltic, like the Baltic, Eastern European are probably a little bit more split, like Hungary and all those places. They're probably a little more split, but overall, probably majority of Europe is backing Ukraine, just because they're all terrified of, the Soviet Union and all those things.
The threat to democracy.
Yeah. Well, you think they're more terrified of the Soviet Union, or are they more terrified of America? Because I don't think anybody's but I also don't think anybody's terrified of America right now. Because if you did, I know that's a little off topic, but did you see Blinken go to Turkey and they were basically like, "Go fish yourself"?
Yeah, actually, I think he went to Iraq too, and they basically told him the same thing. Yeah.
Dude, Iraq wouldn't even see them, and they want the embassies out of there, man. Like, they are losing ground on so many fronts. I mean, you're seeing these other countries just stand up to America now because it's so weak, and they know that they're just letting people invade, military-age men come over the borders. Like, there's millions of them coming over. They know that they can do whatever they got to do in here if they need to. They are watching us just hemorrhage money that they know we're never going to be able to pay back. Nobody, dude, it's crazy.
Aren't you glad the adults are back?
There's some countries that like their what's it called? Their GDP, like over the whatever, is like $11 billion. Full countries,
right?
Yeah,
we're throwing that out weekly.
Yeah, that's insane. That's the cost of empire, right? Like to do all that. That's what they're. We said before, like the word, they're afraid of us. I don't know if they're necessarily afraid. They're afraid of like the money train ending, right?
Yeah,
like,
I don't think it has anything to do with fear of the empire coming to get them. I think they're just.
God, sorry.
I think they're just getting in on the pyramid scheme. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? They're throwing their hat in. Yeah.
Sorry,
they called their three friends that called their three friends that called their three friends. Yep,
dude, the way I look at NATO and America and Europe, like the Western European countries, they're like full throttle members of the empire. They're not like Turkey, right? Which is like part of NATO, but it can be combative to some agenda that NATO will have sometimes. No, like England, France, Italy, Spain, like they're on board 100%. They're in this. Germany, can be. They have a pretty strong economy themselves, so they have like some sway a little bit, but they eventually usually end up falling in line with whatever NATO and America wants. I think they're all just key members of the empire, and they're worried that the gravy train is going to end. Don't forget, like we subsidize their entire defense. There's been a lot of funny fucking memes for lately about the Israel war. And they're like of F-35s doing crazy turns and shit. And people are like, yo, Hamas is about to find out why Americans don't have Medicare for all. It's because, like,
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
All the ships showing up in the Mediterranean.
So I think there's that aspect to it. Going back to what you were saying earlier, Cap, about how, they are, both of you kind of saying they are, like they're all of a sudden just admitting the truth that we've been saying for years. I think back to, did you guys watch Chernobyl, the HBO documentary about Chernobyl?
I saw some of it, yeah.
There's a great line by the main character, I forget his name, but he's essentially like testifying to the Soviet show trial, and he's like, look, like every lie we tell incurs a debt to the truth. And the longer you lie, the more lies you tell, eventually you cannot hide the truth anymore, and the cash register gets rung up. There was only so long that they could just keep lying about, we're making progress. Ukraine's winning the war, and they're not. Literally, they're not going anywhere. The New York Times shared an article last month also showing that zero progress has been made on the front lines. Meanwhile, like the cracks were starting to show us. Damn it, we can't lie anymore. There was the summer counteroffensive that they were planning for fucking months and putting all the money behind just went nowhere. Right, like they were touting and talking up the counteroffensive. Okay, well then people are gonna be like, "Well, shit, weren't you guys like talking about some counteroffensive for?"
But it went nowhere because the money never made it, man. It's so simple to.
Well, that too. But at the same time, yes, I'm sure majority of the money didn't actually make it to the war effort. But there's so much money thrown at this that a lot of it probably did actually make it to the war effort. Plus the actual just legitimate transfer of weapons and equipment. I mean. Say what you want. Majority of that probably did go to Ukrainian soldiers. It just hasn't panned out.
The majority of it went on the black market, and you saw Hamas use it to attack Israel. So what are we talking about?
Let me throw this out here for you. Do you have any more to read? Because this
I want to read the Putin negotiate, but go ahead.
Okay, so beginning of Dave Smith's show, what does he say? If you want to know who we're going to be at odds with,
just
see who we're funding.
See who we're funding now. Yeah.
What if like things are so bad. Like they're streamlining it now to the point that like we're gonna get out of Ukraine. We funded them. We're gonna get out of Ukraine, and the second this shit is done with Israel, it might not be. They might not be able to pull off another 20-year war. Let's just quote unquote maybe live in a fantasy world and say that. Do you think they're like streamlining the process to start like the Nazi uprising in Ukraine, and now we got to go fight them?
I don't think they're actively trying to create a terrorist group of Nazis in Ukraine.
Well, they don't actively try. They just do it.
I think the horrific foreign policy they've deployed here in Ukraine, that will be the blowback of the policy, where John Mearsheimer talks about this. He's famous neocon, war hawk, but he's honest, and he's like, America's walking Ukraine down the primrose path to destruction, where we're telling them, you could take on Russia, we'll back you to the end of time. And he's like, we're not going to back them to the end of time, right? Like eventually we'll find some new shiny object, or some politician will come along and move on to the next thing, like Israel or something like that. And they're going to be very angry years down the road when they've lost 100,000 soldiers and their country's been destroyed, and we just left them high and dry. And then Putin comes in and he has a sphere of influence over them again. Like, yes, the blowback of that 20 years from now will be some Nazi militant group who was like, the Americans, they left us high and dry here. We need to get back at them. And, my dad died.
Afghanistan.
My dad died in the war against the Russians, right? And the fucking Americans let us go. They let us lose our cause.
It's the same playbook when we backed the Afghanis and Osama bin Laden against the Russians. It's the same. Yes. It's the same play. And then we were fighting like.
That's why I'm wondering if we're just streamlining this process.
History repeats itself. I know we talked about last time we were on together. Like they're just getting the war they really wanted. World War III. Like Iran's involved. Everybody they want the war with Iran so bad. I don't know why. I don't think it's healthy for anybody.
Yeah.
What's funny is that like Ukraine for the past, since Joe Biden became president, I'd say has become such a big issue. And Scagz and I, we've covered the debates and stuff, and we always try and listen to what politician is in favor or against Ukraine and stuff. And now, like, we've put all this work and time and effort into covering this. By the time we get to the polls, single issue voters of Ukraine aren't even going to get to vote on the single issue.
Yeah, they're not.
And that's tomorrow, folks. Voting tomorrow.
Yeah,
I do think. So we use the term neocons a lot, obviously, all of us, right? And I do think the war that they've always wanted, let's just say the neocons, is Iran, right? Like they've always wanted war of Iran. If you look
back, their nut.
Yeah, look back to, I think it was Wesley Clark, right? He spelled this out after 9/11. I was listening to Scott Horton recently talk about neocons, and Scott Horton's like, there's only like 20-something neocons, like actual neocons.
So just for our listeners, some people might not be understand what a neocon is. So explain that first.
So again, like I'm just saying, I was listening to Scott Horton talk about this, and he was like, we throw around the term neocons, like neoconservative, war hawks, John McCain types, right? Who like they or like never saw a war they didn't like. You know what I mean? Like never. Yep. It's any war good. Yep, we need that war. But I was listening to Scott talk about these. Like there's like 20-something, and they did this thing called like the Project for a New American Century, where the goal was all these wars and how we're gonna like export democracy and values to the whole world, at the barrel of a gun. And they've written papers about this, and I don't remember exactly every tiny detail. If you want to go listen to Scott Horton's appearance on Timcast a couple weeks ago, he laid this out pretty well. But they've written papers about this shit, and like it all always points to Iran. They want to get rid of Iran because of kind of its central location in the Middle East, its resources, all of those things, right? And they weren't able, after the war on terror, they thought that was the road to Iran, ending with Iran. They toppled the government there.
It was not.
And it wasn't. And what's ironic is they must have thought, like that ship's kind of sailed. There was no popular support for war with Iran or anything like that, and public opinion had shifted to Ukraine. So again, like they just like war. So whatever, we'll go to Ukraine and we'll fight Russia if that needs be. We'll go to Taiwan and fight China if that need be. But man, what Hamas did a couple weeks ago, bailed these people's dreams out. They've been given a lifeline to, accomplish their life goal of trying to get that war with Iran. When they, from snatching victory from the clutches of defeat, in a sense, like that has a heartbeat again, as you're seeing throughout everything.
Iran's back on the menu.
Yeah.
Well, this is the issue with this is they always wanted Iran, and when Trump won,
they couldn't bully him into doing it.
They couldn't bully him into doing it because they knew that.
Yeah, but
they knew.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, hold on. Let me finish. They knew that Hillary would do it. They did that Iranian deal when she was Secretary of State. They've been dealing backdoor deals with Iran for forever. They really wanted that war because, listen, as soon as you bring them into the mix, their nuclear capability, right? We're starting trouble with Russia. They're nuclear capable, right? And they're China. Yeah, sure, okay.
No, I
really don't think so.
Why? Because they let everybody in all their secret hiding spots to give a search.
I really don't think they are, because with how badly they want war with Iran, if they actually did have nuclear weapons, it would be everywhere. It'd be like the evidence. They would be. Colin Powell would be up there. His corpse would be up there at the UN. And he'd be showing the vial again of it. I really don't think that they actually have actual nuclear weapons. That's always like the threat of why we have to go there. We have to stop them, prevent them from getting nuclear weapons. I think with how bad I know the neocons want war with Iran.
You're going to tell me by now they didn't steal something from somebody?
Yeah, or buy it from the Russians.
Come on, man. The Russians, you don't think there's been some?
I've never seen any evidence. I'm telling you, if the people who want war with Iran that badly, if they had the evidence to present, bet your fucking ass they would, because they just spin that as a reason why we have to go to war with them. I'm not going to say we have to go to war with Iran even because they have a nuke. No.
They had no evidence of weapons of mass destruction, but they swore it up and down.
Right, but they haven't done that for this.
They
haven't done that for this, right? So
no, they haven't. But this is the one they want because it drags everybody into it. All the Muslim countries, all the Christian countries, the East versus West, everything else. And I still think this is a giant play to bring us down because then they can control everything, like WHO style, WEF style. Like, I think that, we can all agree that that's the play, that they know America is so strong that they had to bring them down from the inside out. So that's why you're seeing the border. That's why you're seeing our politicians bought, paid for. I mean, like, look, my senator over here, Bobby Menendez, he just got caught as a foreign agent of Egypt. What's right next to Egypt?
Israel.
Gaza, Israel. Yeah. Like, these guys are playing in it. John Kerry, like, are we going to overlook that John Kerry and like half his cabinet was like pretty much brought up a week ago? I think we talked about this as being Iranian spies and doing backdoor deals with the Iranians. Like, I think every country, obviously, and we said this before, like, it's not just the one boogeyman. Like, every country's trying to infiltrate every other country, right? Intelligent wise, whatever it is. But you're seeing the players that these guys are dabbling with the most are the ones that we have the problems with. Right? So you had Biden and them all in Ukraine from 2014, 15, 16, leading the groundwork for it. You had Kerry and Obama and Clinton doing the Iranian deals and all that other stuff. Like, they laid this groundwork 15, 20 years ago, and it's just playing out now. There was a big road bump for 4 years.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So there was that. And then we're in the situation where they're like, oh, we got our stooge in Joe Biden. But like,
dude, yes, you said something just at the start of this that they weakened us from the inside out. Dude, I have a full conspiracy theory that this is all leading to World War III, where we're hemorrhaging money, inflation, just the value of the dollar is taking the worst beating in, for God knows, maybe forever. Our southern border is wide open, military-aged men, plowing in. We have politicians actively wanting to get rid of the Second Amendment, the only amendment that stops us from being colonized and turned into slaves. Boom, World War III takes place. We're funding 2 wars, and I guess we're not going to be funding Ukraine anymore. But if we were funding 2 wars, or if China invades Taiwan, we'll be funding.
Real quick caveat: Biden has promised he will veto any aid bill that doesn't also include aid for Ukraine as well. So I know MAGA Mike Johnson, America First guy, he just passed the $14 billion aid to Israel. That's so.
But what I don't understand,
it's bad, but real quick, it's dead on arrival at the same time because Biden said like any aid that comes for just one thing has to come with the other thing, or I'm just going to veto it. So
yeah, and I wonder who Biden is bought and paid for from.
Yeah,
but my point is, hold on, just let me finish this.
Yeah.
My point is, we're in bad shape. There's going to be wars all over the place. We enter World War III. What happens? America loses. The dollar goes to shit. What's next? Digital currency, one world government. It's so devastating that the American empire falls that boom, we need one world government. Oh, you can't afford a house? Well, guess what? We got pods. Oh, there's food shortages? Well, guess what? We got bugs. You want entertainment? Watch the porn. And boom, Agenda 33 is here. And I really feel that this is what we've been set up for. That's why the dollar's so shitty. That's why our oil reserves are depleted. That's why we have an invasion at the southern border. That's why all these wars are breaking out because of how weak we are. We're intentionally throwing the game so there could be this monumental moment when all is lost, but the World
all
Economic
of humanity
Forum
has to come together, and we need one government to control us all. We need one religion to control us all, etc., etc. So it's the playbook. Once you see it, you understand it. And everything you said, it's not a conspiracy theory like the dollar shit. We are being invaded. We're fighting wars on multiple fronts. We got corrupt politicians everywhere. We got guys getting hit for foreign agent acts. We got guys getting hit for all this other shit. We got a kangaroo court in New York City putting Trump on trial for something that he's already been got for. Now it's a civil suit, like they're throwing it at, but they're blasting it like it's a criminal suit. It's a civil suit. They're still going after him, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, you see, Joey Basements isn't even around. Gavin Newsom's running a shadow campaign. Like it's, I mean, once your eyes are open to this bullshit, like they're just looking, they made him in for as long as they can. They know he's probably not going to last another year or two. There's too much shit about Hunter coming out. There's too much shit about Ukraine coming out. So they're going to move him over, try to put Gavin Newsom in there, Mr. Slick Rick Joker over there, right? And boom. And then they're going to try to wide him in. They're trying to keep Donnie T looking like a criminal as long as he can, right? And trying to keep him out of the spotlight. And even with the voting and everything, nobody feels like there's any change, and there's any change fast enough. Mm-hmm. You see them just hammering our taxes. You see them giving our money away. And we're all like, bro, like, why is it like my grocery bill's insane? It's a mortgage. It's a mortgage.
Before
like
we started recording, we were all complaining about
getting hit with all our bills at once.
Yeah, all our bills and shit. Yeah.
And we work and we try. We try to build things and like, you know, like it is. And it's frustrating to see it just go and be handed. Like, how life-changing would it be for either of you guys in your families if they just gave you $10 million? Oh,
I don't even need 10 million. Give me 5. I have a plan. You know what I mean?
But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And they're just giving away people like we talked about this, like $11 billion at a clip. Like they're giving away $250 something million a day.
Yeah.
Think about that. $250 million a day or whatever it is. Right?
Someone shared something about that recently where they were like, every time one of these like $10-15 billion things go out, it's like, think of anytime they did that as them taking like $500 to $1,000 from you every time. Just straight from you, right? And like, but to every single American person, not just you. Like 5 to 1,000 on every single person.
Yep.
That's essentially
everybody that pays taxes.
Just every person. The person was saying, like, if you do the math, like it adds up.
So, well, yeah, if you do the math, like our kids are $150,000 in debt as soon as they're born as Americans.
Yep, fun.
It's insane. Yeah, it's great.
Let's circle
what
back,
Putin would say.
Jen Psaki here, and let's see what Putin has to say. I was pre-reading this while we were chatting a little bit there, and boy, there was some irony here. So is Putin ready to negotiate? The Biden administration does not have any indication that Russian President Vladimir Putin is ready to negotiate with Ukraine. 2 U.S. officials said. Western officials say Putin still believes he can wait out the West or keep fighting until the U.S. and its allies lose domestic support for funding Ukraine or the struggle to supply Kyiv with weapons and ammunition becomes too costly. Wow. That's what I've been saying.
If it hasn't become too costly yet,
hang on,
it's never.
That's literally what I've been saying for the past 2 years. Like, if you just look at what the Russians have been doing, they just seem to kind of be waiting around, right? Well, like
they don't have to do anything.
Right. So,
else.
like, why are they waiting around? Well,
they are the superpower.
Putin's waiting around. He's like, well, I've kind of just won. I don't have to go crazy here. I could just wait, and maybe Donald Trump wins, and he comes in good faith to negotiate a peace, right? Or all of these points, right? They're never gonna admit that point here, which I do think Putin is calculated enough that he's like, let's see what happens in 2024. Perhaps someone actually will win in America that then is interested in good faith negotiation. Remember, Trump has said he can end the war in 24 hours, right? So I'm sure Putin's seen that.
Zelensky challenged him.
Yeah, I show him 24 minutes, right? That's right. That's what I say. Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
I would have loved if, like, the next day, like, Trump was on a plane to Ukraine knocking on Zelensky's door. All right, let's hear this 24-minute meeting you got.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's keep going.
My favorite line out of that, though, was Biden came and he seemed to kind of understand what I was saying. Man, he has he thought he was
Biden shit his pants and he dragged him around.
My favorite line from that whole Zelensky interview, and I think that was on NBC also, where at the end he's like, he cursed. He was like, this fucking fascist Putin, we have to stop him or something like that. And they bleeped the curse. So, like, Zelensky was trying to have some dramatic, motivate people to be on his side, and they bleeped him out. And it's funny because, like, they kind of stepped on him almost accidentally. But I'm like, they bleeped out the F word. You're talking about war and people murdering each other and fascist Hitler Putins. And it's like, the F word, though, is beyond the pale. You can't air on television. Isn't that just preposterous?
I think it's hilarious that with everything they push, drag queen story hour, this in your face,
too far,
fucking everything else, and they're like, whoa,
they're literally talking about genocide and murder and war and all this stuff, but the F word, no, you can't say that.
Oh, sweet baby Jesus.
Yeah, even when it would have actually been, good for them to have let him just say it unedited because it makes him look cool and strong or whatever the fuck he was trying to go for. All right, let me wrap up the end of the Putin things here. So both Ukraine and Russia are struggling to keep up with military supplies. Russia's ramped up production of artillery rounds, and over the next couple of years may be able to produce 2 million shells per year, according to a Western official. But Russia fired an estimated 10 million rounds in Ukraine last year, so it will also have to rely on other countries. The Biden admin has spent $43.9 billion on security assistance for Ukraine since Russia's invasion in February of 2022. According to the Pentagon, a U.S. official says the administration has about $5 billion left to send to Ukraine before money runs out. There would be no aid left for Ukraine if the admin hadn't said it found a $6.2 billion accounting error with error from months of overvaluing equipment sent to Kyiv.
Goodbye. End this podcast right here. An accounting error. No, you boys could rant on about this.
That was in the summertime. Remember that? The $6 billion accounting error that you guys don't remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I do. Happen to find. Yeah.
That's,
so easy, right? It just 6 point. This comes back to the amount of money fathomable that they just throw away and they don't even know.
Look, I know they're nefarious and everything like that, but they're not, like, you're talking about so much money. Like, they're not good at, like, accounting.
Yeah, but you can't keep track of that much money.
And, like, yes, they're nefarious.
And they're also, but I don't know. I'm not a billionaire. I'm sure you go over to Putin, he knows where all his money is.
I don't know about
that. Well, he might not know where it all is, but he knows how much it weighs.
Maybe. Don't forget, man, he's former Soviet KGB. Communism and that whole system was the most inefficient thing ever. I'm sure there's a lot of inefficiencies in the Kremlin to date.
Although
it's
I know
funny they've tried to make more efficient. That article actually touched on it. They've tried to make their supply lines and things like that way more efficient than they used to be. Go ahead, Cap.
The government could have a $6 billion accounting error and there's zero accountability. But if I was to embezzle pennies from the government, I'd be thrown in some hole and the hole would be sealed over on top and I'd never be heard from again.
Pour concrete,
it's insane.
And lead right on your fucking head.
Yep.
So
I know, it's insane.
What I want to get from all this and what I've just been thinking, just the irony of this whole thing is obviously the last 2 years, right? Biden, Lindsey Graham, everyone in the regime, Republican, Mitch McConnell, Republicans and Democrats alike, the corporate press, they have been selling the narrative that Vladimir Putin wants to reconstitute the Soviet Union. He is an enemy of democracy. After he's done with Ukraine, he's going to move on to Poland and then on to the rest of Western Europe. And he is, the Ukrainians and people are saying he's the next Hitler. He's a genocidal maniac. That's actually what Zelensky was saying at the end of his interview the other day. That his his fucking genocidal tyrant or whatever he was saying. All of that, those are like high charges to make of an enemy or a country. As you can see now, they're starting to wind down the idea of us being involved in this war. They're just going to get amnesia about all that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, is he no longer a genocidal maniac hell-bent on taking over Europe? I mean, you told me he was, and he couldn't be reasoned with. Then if we didn't do something about him now, he's going to roll over Poland. Well, I mean, then, so let's keep in mind, right? Like, if we stop doing anything about him and then he actually doesn't do that, are they going to be like, well, no, we were wrong. He actually isn't looking to reconstitute the Soviet Union, take over the rest of Europe. The same people who were selling it this whole time. Or are they just not ever going to reference this again and get amnesia about the bill of sale that they just tried to put on the American people for the past 2 years?
I've actually been thinking about this because I knew you were going to ask this. And, I've been formulating my own opinion through things that I've been listening to and reading. One, I think the easiest thing they're going to say, because you're never going to be able to prove it otherwise, is going to be, well, if we didn't aid Ukraine for the past 2 years, then he would, right? But like my thing, I'm not even like upset with the corporate media, the administration, I'm upset with the people that follow this, the fools that support the current thing, right? Because now there's not going to be no accountability. There's not going to be no apologies, nothing, business as usual, whether we keep funding Ukraine or we don't, right? But at the beginning of this, if you were against Ukraine, you're a Putin sympathizer, you're a Russian sympathizer, Russia man bad. We must at all costs support Ukraine. And now, just on a whim, because we have a new shiny war taking place in the Middle East, we're not going to support Ukraine anymore. And all the diehard blue and yellow flag flying, people are just going to about face and start supporting Israel or Palestine.
Well, hold on. That's not necessarily true. The paradigm has been exploded with the war in Israel on that, because the people who are usually the woke zombies, right? You're seeing them primarily all come out in support of Palestine, right? And they're not doing that because of like the principled libertarian take that like understands the history and values property rights and shit like that. No, they see it as like colonialism and poor brown people are being oppressed and all that stuff. So me and you were talking about this, Cap. The reason you saw all these protests over the weekend, right? Tremendous protests everywhere in favor of Palestine, and you're seeing Biden come out with like Islamophobia and we have to protect people from this and people from that. But the protesters, like I was telling you, they're not falling for that, right? Like they understand that, look, you're still sending $14 billion to Israel. You're still propping up the country that has been, fucking over the Palestinians for, fucking 100 years or whatever it's been. So they're not falling for that. So there's a conundrum there, right? Like the people that they usually have like crafted into conformists that will do whatever they want them to do aren't doing what they want them to do on this. So now they're kind of like reacting in a sense, trying to like do any random thing. Go ahead.
Well, maybe then, you and I are just answering my own question, because I'm like, when COVID started, if you said it came from the lab, you were xenophobic. If you were against the vaccine, you were an anti-vaxxer. If you were going to vote for Trump and not Hillary, you were deplorable. So and it just continuously, they were wrong. You supported the wrong thing. You supported the wrong thing. Next up, you supported the wrong thing. When are people going to fucking wake up and stop supporting the current thing? And maybe this might be it. Well, in support with Palestine.
There's an attempt at that with this new war, right? And it's, if you criticize anything Israel does, you're anti-Semitic.
Islamophobic.
You're anti-Semitic. If you criticize anything that Israel does.
Yeah, but that's their playbook, Scagz. That's what they do with everything. They control everything, and then they go, "Oh, you hate Jews." If you point out that they're fucking stealing or they're doing something, it's like anything else that they do, right? They literally just label you something so they can just get out of. Yeah, they can just get out of their. Oh, that's my get out of jail free card. You hate Jews.
But the point I'm trying to make is like they've created this monster. Right, this monolith of the woke mind virus leftists, right? Like they've created this monster, and now the monster is not in line with exactly what they're trying to do. So it's like, you know, the time old tale of like you created a monster and then you can't control it.
Is it or is it not? That's what I'm wondering, because it's so weird because you have so many people that are so like Israel, 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 and then you're seeing these other side like, I'm not falling for this shit again. I'm gonna go with the Palestinians here nor there, right? Like, I think they're still achieving their goal is total chaos.
That's a very good
That's
point.
the goal, because nobody's thinking straight. Everybody's making emotional decisions and not logical decisions. And as long as you got all the monkeys in the cage fighting with each other, you can steal all the food out the back. And that's what they're doing. They're constantly keeping us pitted against each other. Because why? United we stand, divided we fall. It's as simple as that. They're constantly keeping us at each other's throats. They're constantly keeping us in this state of fear. Why? Because if you're in that constant state of panic or fear, you're not going to make rational decisions. You're going to make emotional decisions.
We've been talking about that.
Yeah, we've talked about this. I know we've talked about it as well. Is nobody makes a very good, responsible decision, especially off of a fear-based decision or an erratic emotional decision. Like we have to sit it out, take the emotions out, and lay. And they're not allowing anybody to do that. Why? Because there's always a new thing. There's always a new war. Now they're at home. Now there's going to be attacks. Oh, there's a school shooting. Oh, the manifesto was let out. Oh, this was happening. Oh, the Ukraine, we're not over there anymore. Oh, let's go back over to Gaza today. Oh, let's go check this out. Oh, this guy's running. It's Trump's in jail. Oh, we're over here. Like it's constant bombardment. It's insanity. Nobody can think that clearly.
I've been wanting to float this out with so the Biden administration is pro-Israel, basically. We're seeing the rising of pro-Palestine protests going on. I wouldn't be surprised if these pro-Palestine protests become the next BLM type of movement. I was going to
say like the summer of love.
Yeah,
it's election season.
It's election season where the administration is telling you go support Israel or else don't be anti-Semitic. And what would be great for that? If pro-Palestinian protesters started burning things down. Now it's a fucking problem. Oh, see, look, they're bringing the war here. This is why we need to send more money to Israel, blah, blah, blah. I could really see that playing out in the months coming up.
And with that comes like Ben Shapiro and Dave Rubin, and like all these right-wingers, right on
all the bought right-wingers.
Like, oh, you see, we told you, like this is all part of, the woke mind virus. And you see like these Palestinian Hamas and all this shit, like, taking away from the fact that just goddamn it, principally, it's a fucking property rights issue, right? Like these people don't want to lose their homes, and these people want to kick them out of their homes and take over their land. But
know what too?
But that will work well, in terms of gaining popular support, perhaps for Israel's war against Gaza.
But hear me out too. Yeah, what's Professor Giordano always talking about the domestic terrorist?
They actually did. God damn it, I forgot what it was, but they like, I think they put out what was the name of that? It was like they put like the terror alert out, right? All red, level yellow, level red.
No, I know they're bringing that back, but no, Scagz and I are talking about it's deterring domestic terrorists or something. I can't remember it, but it was widely unpopular because everybody's like, oh, you guys are just talking about Trump supporters being domestic terrorists.
National
but here they go
for countering domestic terrorism.
If you're a Palestinian protester burning down buildings, you're going to get labeled as a domestic terrorist.
Yeah. And
it all comes full circle,
the
kids.
right wing is going to cheer it on as they, are psyoped into supporting the next war. I was laughing because they passed something called like the National Strategy for Combating Islamophobia. I was like, Jesus, they're so bad at these propaganda campaigns. Like they just copy and paste fucking phrases from before. They're not creative at all. Like we put more.
We're obviously just going to start the Islamophobia Foundation for and it will be headed by like Rashid Tlaib. You know, like
I think ultimately, me and Cap were talking about this offline. I do think that they're scared. Look, say what you want about the validity of elections, right? God damn it. Massive amounts of people voting do matter to some extent. That's why they try and create a monolith that just does whatever they tell them to do.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that like over the weekend people are trying to scale the fucking fence at the White House and are cursing at Biden, they're paying attention to that. Trust me, they are. And they're now concerned like, Jesus, if this many people are upset about our policy between Israel and Palestine, they might not come vote for us in 2024, right? And by us, I mean the Democrats, right? And maybe they're not going to go and vote for Trump. Maybe they won't vote at all, right? Because they're so fucking pissed off. That is huge because then you think the Trump people are still going to go vote for Trump? Of course they are, right? But this monolith the Democrats have fostered for years are just going to sit out this thing because of the policy that they've, this bad policy that they've created. That is something they are paying attention to. That is why they're trying to pass these like these virtue signaling things to the woke leftists about Islamophobia and this and that, whatever. But at the end of the day, people are actually concerned about like the X's and O's. No, you're giving Israel money, and weapons. They then use them to blow people up in Gaza, and they've been doing this shit for fucking ever. So I do think that they realize that they're trying to like have both. They have their cake and eat it too. Like they want to just keep supporting Israel no matter what without any criticism, but then they'll pay like lip service to here's $10 million in aid to Gaza and stop, we have to stand up for innocent people being drone striked and whatever.
And people who weren't paying attention to the situation before it popped off didn't realize that like Israel was almost in a civil war with itself.
Yes.
Up to that day where they were trying to get rid of Bibi.
Was in trouble.
Yeah, they were trying to get rid of him. They were literally having protests in the streets. They wanted nothing like this. And I said it from the jump one. As soon as I saw it happen, I said, this is Israel's 9/11. This is the way to try to rally the troops and fight everybody. But you're still seeing, even within that government, you're seeing like the Hasidic Jews that are the non-Zionists fighting with the police. The regime's police. And they're like still they're fighting for the Palestinians, some of them. It's crazy.
There definitely is some popular support, but
they don't want to show you that.
There
is
some dissonance. And of course, everything is they're trying to, manicure everything that comes out of there, right? Since Israel has invaded Gaza, like one of the first things they did was cut off all the internet. I mean, just come on. Why do you think they cut off the internet, right? Because the IDF doesn't want anybody taking videos and uploading them to Twitter or whatever it is they're doing, and good or bad, right? Like, because things can get also taken out of context or be fake. I've seen a lot of fake shit come out of Gaza from Hamas propaganda, right? So they're just like, no, there's just no internet, and we'll just control the flow of information, the narrative around this whole
with an open internet, these wars they're not going to be as lucrative.
They get debunked a lot quicker.
All right, so let's we mentioned him real quick. Let's go over to our friend Benjamin Netanyahu here, and just with another irony speech.
I want to make clear Israel's position regarding a ceasefire. Just as the United States would not agree to a ceasefire after the bombing of Pearl Harbor or after the terrorist attack of 9/11, Israel will not agree to a cessation of hostilities with Hamas after the horrific attacks of October 7th. Calls for a ceasefire are calls for Israel to surrender to Hamas, to surrender to terrorism, to surrender to barbarism. That will not happen. Ladies and gentlemen, the Bible says that there is a time for peace and a time for war. This is a time for war, a war for our common future. Today we draw a line between the forces of civilization and the forces of barbarism. It is a time for everyone to decide where they stand. Israel will stand against the forces of barbarism until victory. I hope and pray that civilized nations everywhere will back this fight, because Israel's fight is your fight. Because if Hamas and Iran's axis of evil win, you will be their next target. That's why Israel's victory will be your victory. But make no mistake, regardless of who stands with Israel, Israel will fight until this battle is won, and Israel will prevail. May God bless Israel, and may God bless all those who stand with Israel.
You said it right, Cap. I think the first time we talked about Netanyahu a couple weeks ago, I was like, look, one of the things I took from him, it's like he's got a good voice, right? Like he gives a commanding speech whenever he gives it. Like he just has that authority behind whatever it is he says.
But, know who else did too? You know, Hitler.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But look,
and
man,
Obama.
Good speaker.
Maybe I need to refresh myself on the beginnings of the 20-year war we just had. But it is wild to see world leaders and leaders of nations just be like, fuck peace.
And then cut and paste access to evil right out of George W.'s playbook.
Couple things, right? So first of all, quote, like citing the American response. Let's take Pearl Harbor aside. I got criticisms there as well. You could watch a Truman episode debate on that one, but let's take that aside because that's too long ago. Let's just we were all alive for 9/11. So citing the United States' response to 9/11 as like a good precedent of what to do after you're attacked, even by their lying standards, the regime, that's like really bad. That's not a good propaganda talking point. Almost everyone now agrees, like, we fucked up after 9/11. We made a lot of mistakes. Almost everybody, even John McCain on his deathbed admitted, we made a mistake going into Iraq after 9/11. So for him to cite that, that's preposterous. That's preposterous. 7 wars, $20 trillion in debt, 2 million people dead. How many American soldiers dead? PTSD, blown their fucking brains out.
Still committing suicide.
No weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. ISIS created from the vacuum we've caused. Libya is an open slave market now because of overthrowing the government there. Yemen, 500,000 babies dead, or whatever the fuck it is. Like, that's a good precedent to set? Yeah, we got to do what they did after 9/11. I mean, maybe he's just being brutally honest. I don't know. Maybe that's their fucking goal. It's just crazy. It's funny when I heard that. And then on top of the fact that the axis of evil thing. Yeah, remember George Bush giving the speech? Iran, the axis
like I said earlier, man, this was Israel's 9/11, and they're going to use the same exact talking points. They literally almost used the same verbiage as George Bush in their things, because they're like, well, that worked. It got everybody rah-rah on the troops. So, like, they just cut and paste it. That's how lazy they are, or that's not how much they don't even give a fuck anymore.
That's how stupid they think we are.
Oh, yeah. Well, there are a lot of us that are that dumb.
Word.
I watched too earlier was it last week? I watched Nasrallah's speech. I don't know if you guys caught any of that or the clips of it. He's like the leader of Hezbollah. And,
is that the yeah? I know who you're talking about.
The leader of Hezbollah. He's the old looking,
got the glasses
with the beard, with the white beard.
So I've watched Netanyahu. I also watched Nasrallah's speech. I watch all of Nasrallah's speech just because I want to see what the enemy has to say.
The counterpoint,
straight from them, not through some filter,
and not from CNN.
And so, like, as you watch here, you're watching Netanyahu say, like, this is an evil between barbarism and the forces of good versus evil. The axis of evil, all this shit. Like, Netanyahu's talking very vaguely and general. But then if you go over and watch Nasrallah's speech, it's like an hour, and he's like, I have, and he's speaking in Arabic or whatever it is, and he's like, I have an issue with this policy A and policy B and policy C, and because of America funding policy A, that's caused policy D, which then causes Muslims to be killed, right? And he's like, and he's being critical of other Muslim nations who are like not doing. He's like, it's literally a political podcast that this Islamic extremist is giving. He doesn't ever once mention I hate Jews. Right? Yeah. Or I hate Americans' freedom and blue jeans, or that we're, like, I just want to wipe Israel off the face of the map because they're Jews or whatever. He's like, these are the policies I don't like. Stop doing them or we're going to blow you the fuck up. And if you attack us, if you take any actions against our people on our border, we're going to defend ourselves. It really reminds me of Osama bin Laden after 9/11, and they made it out to be he hates our freedom. and they want a genocide against Americans, or whatever the fuck it was that they're trying to tell us. But then if you go and just read his fatwa, his declaration of war, it's like your foreign policy A got Muslims killed in this part of the world. Your propping up of, the crown prince of Saudi Arabia, he persecutes certain type of Muslims, whatever. Like, he doesn't ever say, like, I don't like the Constitution or the Bill of Rights or the fact that you guys watch cartoons.
No, he's like, let us do our fucking thing over here while you guys do your thing over there. I'm not, like,
excusing anything these people do or saying they're good guys or whatever, but, like, you're being
but it's
sold
fucking reality too. People live in this fairy tale world that everything's like fucking, unicorn farts and pixie dust and everything's great, dude. Like it's not. The world is a hard place. No matter how much you try to nerf your kids, no matter how much you try to nerf society and give everybody safe places, when you get out into the raw world where you have to deal with real shit, it's fucking messy. It's gross. It's violent. It is what it is. Is there great things about stuff? Yes, but like we got to stop also world policing people, and we got to stop telling other motherfuckers how to live. Like if their society survives like that, that's how they do it. Like it's not our job to switch them over.
It's not good for the empire, though.
We don't have to like it, right? But like you can't.
Well, nothing's good for the empire at this point. So why don't we? What do we have to fucking lose? How about we try a new playbook?
Hold on until you strangle it. That's their game plan.
We're supposed to be the beacon on the hill, right? We can't export our values and democracy and all this crap at the barrel of a gun to people who don't want it, right? We need to be America, what the founding fathers wanted. The beacon on the hill.
Yeah, you want to come
Freedom,
chill? Come chill.
Liberty, capitalism, free markets, right? And we'll just do it's right? It's the correct worldview for humanity, freedom and liberty. And if you lean into those things, you get the most powerful nation that's ever existed in the history of the world, with the most inventions and culture exported everywhere, right? Because we leaned into those things. And that is the example other people will then want to follow or not. If they don't, you know what? That's your prerogative. I'm not going to, as long as you don't come over here and tell me what to do, that's fine. So I think that's what we have to lean into. And they're just constantly selling you the opposite, that, oh no, these people don't like us because of our freedom. It can be further from the
because it's no good for the empire. Yeah. It's the people running the empire only want to expand the empire. There's no thought ever of not doing that. That's their goal. That's their mission. That's their job. Expand the empire.
Yeah. That's their life's work.
By any means necessary. Destabilize South America. Boom. Done.
Just to tie this up real quick, I wanted to make a point before. Garrett, we talked in the last couple of months about, we brought up how like Islamic extremism just vanished, right?
Yep, and now it's back.
We
literally said it like a week before.
Literally it was like a week before. So we called that shit. That is what is going to happen with Putin and Russia. Like that it's going to be the same thing. And we'll be laughing a year from now and be like, hey, remember when everybody was fucking losing their shit about Putin and how he was the evil Hitler and all this stuff, and there was Ukraine flags and everybody's on the church, in front of the church or whatever. Like, no one said anything about that shit in a year or two or like 5 years from now, whatever. We'll be like,
and all of a sudden,
China or something will turn around. Yeah, so just keep that in mind. That's how this fucking propaganda works.
Head on a swivel, kids.
Yeah. Any other thoughts before we go to tweets of the week? I know you got nothing, Captain. So
I haven't been on Twitter in days.
I know.
I'm happy as can be.
Any other thoughts before I go over to it or no?
Go for it.
Nah, man, go over.
All right. So I got 4. They kind of can spark a little conversation in themselves, I think. First one. This is
Dan Crenshaw, your favorite.
Yeah, this is a good one. This is from
One-Eyed Willie
Crenshaw, and it's a video. I don't know if you guys saw
the Dagestan
chasing. Yep, and it's an airport in Dagestan, and a bunch of Muslims, I guess, heard a flight from Israel came in. They got angry, and they went after the people on the flight.
Yeah.
So this video gets posted. Not good, right? Obviously, all of us agree. Violence is not good. Dan Crenshaw says, never heard of Dagestan until now, but apparently it's a Jew-hating hellhole.
It's a fucking lie because he knows Khabib Nurmagomedov is UFC champion. They're all from Dagestan.
So I don't know of Dagestan for any political reason besides the fact that Khabib is from Dagestan. I know a lot of good fighter has come out of there. But you mean to tell me that hold on, like this is a cell phone. You're Dan Crenshaw. You're always commenting about foreign policy and things like that. Dagestan's in fucking Russia, who you're advocating for war with every single day, Dan Crenshaw. But he doesn't know where Dagestan is? This shit reminds me, Cap, you know what this reminds me of, bro? Remember when we had on Jose Vega and he was like, he was talking to, I think it was Richie Torres and Jamal Bowman, and he asked them about Donetsk and Luhansk, and they were like, "What's that?"
Yeah.
And Jose Vega was like taken aback, where he was like, "What? What do you mean? What's that? You're voting on bills of funding the war in Ukraine, but
they don't read.
You don't know what the Donbass is in Ukraine. Yeah. It's the same thing. Like this idiot Dan Crenshaw doesn't even know what the Dagestan region is. Bowman doesn't know what Donetsk is, but we do somehow, right? Like idiots who podcast.
And we're the problem.
Yeah, we're the problem. Yeah. I mean, we are because we know, I guess. So yeah. I thought that was a funny fucking cell phone and just pathetic at the same time. All right. Next one is from Vivek. This one is pretty deranged from Vivek, I have to say.
From Swami.
So Vivek says, now is the moment for Israel to return to its founding premise. The Jewish state has an absolute right to exist, a divine gift, gifted to a divine nation, charged with a divine purpose. Israel has an absolute and unequivocal right and responsibility to defend itself to the fullest, applying the only language its adversaries understand, the language of force. And what would David Ben-Gurion say? Don't depend on anyone else's fleeting sympathies or permission to do it. If Israel wants to destroy Hamas, Israel should go ahead and destroy Hamas. If Israel wants to destroy Hezbollah, Israel should go ahead and destroy Hezbollah. If Israel and Mossad want to pull off a Munich 2.0 and take out every last leader of Hamas, wherever they may be hiding, from Doha to Dresden, and host a red wedding at the Four Seasons in Qatar the next time Hania and Masai show up, they should go ahead and do it. So I appreciate the Game of Thrones reference there from Vivek.
Figured you would.
I don't know. What do you guys think?
But by that standard, then if Hamas wants to destroy Israel, they should go ahead and do it. My only thing is this is upsetting, but this has been the theme of what I've been talking about over the past several weeks. Gee, I wonder who owns Vivek. Could it be Israel? I don't know.
Yeah, or just the AIPAC money.
This goes back to what me, you, and Steve talked about. This is another person who's never had to deal with real violence, talking real tough from a fucking computer, but couldn't fight his way out of a paper bag. So I take your opinion with 0% interest. Zero.
Yeah, this was disappointing for me from Vivek. He hasn't been as bad.
Yeah, he's usually he's a good speaker too.
And he hasn't been as bad on this war as most. Like he has had some pretty decent points.
Yeah, but those are some pretty strong words right here.
Yeah, this is some strong religious zealotry.
Divine rights to
and
destroy.
Which is he not Christian? Or
no,
is
I think
he
he's
Hindu?
a Hindu. Like that's the religion of peace. For him to
be
leading with such a violent religious.
I think that was just racist of us because he's a brown Indian looking guy.
It's
we're just racist now.
It's something, man. One of the things I took from this last election cycle is like, hey, at least you have like 3 really good anti-establishment candidates like RFK, Vivek, Trump.
But Vivek is, and if you dig into his pharmaceutical background, he's got a lot of deals.
I have it. That doesn't really even bother me that much. That aspect of his
not too much, but I mean, it's got to be something you look at.
Yeah. I have, but anyway, when it comes to this war, man, they all suck on it. They all suck.
Yeah,
Trump has been a little bit ho-hum.
Exposing the
Trump's been a little bit mum on the issue. He's
I agree with you, Cap, on that one.
Yeah, he's come out in support of Israel essentially, but isn't concentrated on it a lot. Maybe because he's going through the court bullshit, right? So he's more focused on that. But yeah,
well, we should all be more focused at home at this point, is my opinion.
This whole thing has really just solidified the fact I'm probably voting for a libertarian, whoever it is. No matter what, like we're gonna get into this soon at the convention, like the crop of candidates, like no matter who it is, like they're gonna be good on this. They're gonna be good on everything. Like there might be some slight differences between a couple of them, like personality wise, but ultimately at the end of the day, like if it was Josh or Dr. Rechtenwald, they're gonna be really good on everything, right? So I don't know. We'll see when we get there. All right, one more tweet. 2 more tweets. And the last one, boys, the last one, not this one, the one after, it's going to throw you guys for a loop. But all right, so this is from Aaron Monte. He goes, Israeli officials told their U.S. counterparts that they believed mass civilian casualties were an acceptable price in the military campaign. The Israelis also made specific references to the Allied bombings of Germany and Japan in World War II, including the dropping of 2 atomic warheads in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So the Biden admin heard this intent for mass murder and still gave the green light. Why did I pick this, Captain? Because we just did an episode where we had Vinny here and we talked about the bombings of, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I was trying to make the point of, I understand every propaganda point that's been made over the past fucking 100 years that we had to do it to save lives. But I'm like, I don't know if that's true. And if we don't think of this critically, they're going to use those events as justification for future events of atrocity. And they're going to be like, well, remember, we had to do this in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Here we are a month later, and that's literally exactly what's happening. So, like, I predicted this shit like Nostradamus. Literally.
Yeah.
What amazes me is that, like, just how open for violence we are. We have world leaders telling us, fuck peace, we don't want it. We have politicians saying that, like, Israel has the right to erase these group of people off the planet. It is why, like, and now we're saying, mass civilian casualties was just the price to pay. Like, this war is going to ring up a huge death toll. Lots of people are going to die, because I don't think anything is off the table for this war. If it is connected to the election or, any of our conspiracies, whatever, I think the casualty rate for this war is going to be astronomical.
Yeah, if it spirals into a major conflict.
Dude, because I've never, like I said, I got to refresh myself at the beginning of the Iraqi war. Just, I've never, like, people are just so ready to eradicate a race,
I think with this war in general, too, like, there's just such a lack of awareness, maybe, for whatever reason.
Yeah, but that goes with everything else.
But with this one specifically,
they just restoked the, go get the brown guys over there that hit the buildings. That's what they restoked.
What I'm talking about is
people aren't learning from it.
Yeah, when I'm talking about lack of awareness, I'm talking about, like, for the regime, and maybe this plays into what you guys are saying, like, they want this to spiral into chaos and World War III and all this shit. But my God, like, the lack of awareness. Bassem Youssef, when he was being interviewed by Piers Morgan, he's like, this is the shit that leads to World War III. Like, this is a red line for Muslims around the world.
Yes.
For whatever reason, like, we could get into the specifics about why they care about Palestinians so much, specifically, like, et cetera. But, like, they just do, right? So they just do. Well, and they all get mad when, he also, you know what I mean? Like, they all don't like what's happening to the Palestinians everywhere else. Like, that's it. That's the reality of the situation. That's where we live in reality. That's a valid fucking concern that they have. And if we're going to, like, make peace and not have an insane war, we're just going to have to take that into a fucking account and mediate some sort of solution to this whole war. Anyway, that was the point I was trying to make. What were you going to say?
Nah, you're good. Go ahead. Go on next week.
All right, one more. This one's
Garrett's getting hungry. He wants his chicken.
So this one is completely unrelated. And this one, boys, this is one of the more heinous things.
It's a good one.
This is one of the more heinous things I have seen this year. This is from Daily Mail Online.
Christ.
And it says, author comes out as transgender man after his wife came out as a trans woman, and pair, who have a trans daughter, now live in a 4-way relationship with their trans lovers.
This is fucking retarded.
And I can't wait for the porno to come out.
Stupid. It's so stupid. It's like, all right, I'm gonna play dress up and you're gonna play dress up, but we're still gonna fuck, right? All right, cool. Like, this is so stupid. Like, this isn't real life, guys. This can't be real life.
Must be horrific.
I can smell them through this picture. I can fucking smell them.
This thing.
I smell that guy or lady or whatever it is on the right.
Look, she's like a Satanist too, right? Like, is that a
Satan
Wiccan tattoo? And
that's a Wiccan. I think that's a
Reich
Wiccan
tattoo here. I don't even know, dude. I mean, this is
yeah, dude. But this is how it all is. It's just it's. Dude, we're living in Babylon right now, man. And the Tower of Babel is going to fall, man. It's like we're doing everything, whether you're religious or not. I'm not super religious, like going to church all the time, but like you have to stop and look sometimes to just be like the blasphemy that is going on with just nature and the defiling of just like the most honest thing you could be, being born a male or female, and they're just degrading it. It's like, dude, some of us deserve to get smacked in the mouth for allowing this to happen too. You know, like, this is crazy. This is crazy. It's crazy. It's show that picture again. You can smell it from here, and it's just craziness. You can't tell me this is normal.
No, it's not. But at the end of the day,
look at that.
I'd like to see the Thanksgiving dinner political conversations that go on.
No, there's no way they
celebrate
Thanksgiving.
No way. They would be like, they killed all the Indians.
I'm not eating
meat on that day. I'm not doing it.
It must be an interesting household to live in. You know what I mean? Like,
that is,
yes, to say the least. Yes, I agree. Yeah.
But my thing is though, like, at least they're like, there's no like children or we're not talking about.
They have a trans daughter. It says.
Right, but we don't have is the trans daughter one of those?
I mean, we could probably do a whole episode on just this
right.
story.
But what I'm saying is, like, the majority of them seem to be adults. So therefore, like, if this is the crazy life you want to live, like,
yeah,
I got more important things to worry about.
No, and I understand that, and I do, but I can't. She
describes the unusual relationship as poly-cool, whatever that means.
Oh, we're making up more words.
More words. Trans dudes are hotter. Oh my! I just want to
have them.
Yeah, it's
I'd rather slam my dick in the door all day.
This last tweet.
Yeah.
Whatever.
We're gonna get canceled for a tweet someone else made. We're just sharing like libs of TikTok.
Yeah.
Just hold up a mirror to these people, and you're the bad guy for just doing that. Yeah.
Nah, it's so stupid.
That was fun.
You people are crazy.
I thought that was one of the most outrageous tweets I've ever seen. So
that was funny.
Captain.
All right, Doom Nation. Thank you guys for joining us once again. Garrett, shout out your stuff. Let's get Garrett some followers over here.
Same place, same bat channel where you can go check us, help us out, subscribe over at Rumble, and you can follow us on all major platforms, audio wise, except for Spotify. So go check us out.
Thank you very much, Garrett. All right, Doom Nation, we hope you guys enjoyed this episode. It's been a great one. You can make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Follow us. Check out our link tree.